somewhere around in there.
August the 8th, give or take, 1945. Mr. Peyton Morgan has just seen the Stars and Stripes and discovered that the atomic bomb has been dropped on Hiroshima.
Right.
And we'll continue from there.
And I think I went back to the holding camp, and we were there for a little bit longer, and I think the war ended while I was still there. They couldn't get transportation back. All the ships were full up. And finally they put me on a Liberty ship. I don't know where my men were. I was separated from them.
Where were you separated from? In that camp outside Paris?
Yeah. When I went there, they went somewhere else.
Is that because you then became an individual?
Yes.
With your own number of points and your own priority for getting back to the States?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember they had a German cook. And I would, he'd been prisoner of war, and I talked to him a little bit. He could speak English. And
that was in this camp?
Yeah.
How did a German cook end up in this camp outside Paris?
I don't know. But he did.
Okay.
And I was talking...
He was, but a military cook? Or he was a civilian?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know, okay.
And one day there was a thunderstorm. And he said, he said, Donner and Blitzen. And that's when I realized, I guess for some reason, that was German for thunder and lightning.
Donner and Blitzen.
Donner and Blitzen.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
Thunder and lightning. And he didn't even think. He said, "Oh, thunder and lightning, Donner and Blitzen."
What? Just for curiosity, I think I know the answer to this question. But let me ask it anyhow. What's in your mind now? Are you thinking, "Holy Maria, let me get out of here, go back home"? Or are you thinking, "Well, I can hang around here in Europe for a while. If I weren't one of the first to get on the boat, I could maybe look around and see a few sights."
I wanted to go back. I wanted to go home.
Okay,
I was done with it.
I figured that was the answer to the question. I thought I'd ask it. You wanted out of there.
Yes.
You wanted back to Virginia.
Right. And I didn't end up in Virginia.
Okay. Well, how long was it before you actually did get on a ship or whatever?
Oh, probably a matter of a couple of weeks. It seemed like a long time to me. But they put me on a Liberty ship.
So this is like maybe the third week in August, something like that?
Probably.
And you got on a ship at
Le Havre.
Le Havre, and went back to
United States.
And how long did that take?
It takes about 7 to 10 days.
And you disembarked?
Boston.
Boston? Okay.
Got on an electric train. It was, I remember there was some snow in Boston. So that must have been probably October, wouldn't it? November. Wouldn't there be a little bit of snow then?
Well, could be.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. We're getting, let's see, if you left in August.
No, it'd be September.
You'd get there.
That's right. There wasn't any snow up there.
Okay, September in Boston.
Got on an electric train. Everything was by train, you know.
Right. You're still in the Army.
Right.
When you got to Boston, obviously.
Right.
And then you went
home. I had a leave of absence.
Oh, you weren't mustered out of the military immediately?
No. Let me tell you about that.
Okay.
I was sent to Camp Bowie, Texas.
Okay, why?
Well,
I mean, most people came back and they got out of the service like pronto.
I said, why?
You didn't know.
Oh, yeah, I found out.
Oh.
They said you have an essential MOS.
Okay.
And we can't let you out.
Okay, so you went to Boston, immediately went home to Lynchburg?
For leave, yeah.
For leave, and how long was that? Maybe a couple weeks?
Maybe 30 days.
Oh, it was a pretty good long leave then. And then you went to Camp Bowie, Texas, which is where? Where in the world is Camp Bowie,
Other
Texas?
side of Dallas.
Okay.
It's now Fort Bowie, I think.
I don't think so. It must be closed.
Maybe
I say that. I'm not positive, but it's like that between Dallas and Fort Worth, isn't that?
No, it's other side of Fort Worth.
West of Fort Worth.
Yeah, about 200 miles.
100
miles.
Okay.
And while I was there, I had a job offer in Dallas. Went up and interviewed. They were looking for anybody with microwave training. I had didn't many people know anything about microwaves, and they were just beginning to do the microwave relay stations for long distance across the country. They just begged me to come work for them, and I said, man, I'd love to do it. They made me an offer.
I'm in the Army.
And the Army said, no, you're essential. So I went.
Excuse me, are you first lieutenant now?
Oh yeah, I got promoted.
When did you finally get promoted to first lieutenant? Where were you? Do you remember?
Right when we were moving. I think I would know I was a first lieutenant when I got to Nuremberg, when we were moving on west.
Okay.
I think I got promoted maybe a month before and didn't know about it.
About the time you were protecting that bridge on the Rhine?
Right, just about that
give
time.
Give or take a little?
Right
okay.
around that.
Okay, excuse me. So now you're a first lieutenant, you're at Camp Bowie, and the Army won't let you out.
In fact, it must have been something before that, because after I did all of this and got to Bowie, I know the colonel and I would go out and hunt a little bit, fish some. There's nothing to do. I went back and said, I've got this good job offer. And they said, no, sir, you're essential. And I said, essential for what? The war is over. They said, no, we can't let you go. I went from Bowie to Camp Polk, Louisiana.
How long were you in Texas, Camp Bowie?
I stayed in 9 more months. I was essential. And the most important thing I did for the whole time was be a mess officer. And the way to be a mess officer is to get a good mess sergeant and sign anything he puts in front of you.
Were you a mess officer at Camp Bowie? Or was that at
yes,
Camp
I did.
Polk?
I started at Camp Polk. I know I was mess officer the whole time I was there.
But you were mess officer also at Bowie, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
How long were you at Bowie, and then how long at Polk?
I guess I was at Bowie a matter of a month or 2 or 3 or 4, and then at Polk for 4, 5, 6 months. I think I was in. Think of when I got separated. I haven't thought of that much.
Well, during this period, you did nothing at all with radars. You did either nothing or you were a successful mess officer.
Nothing.
Which means listening to a successful mess sergeant.
That's right, and leaving him alone. Really, that's the secret of the sergeants. You say, if you want something done, if the colonel wants something done, he calls in the lieutenant and says, Lieutenant, we need that. Get it done. And the lieutenant gets hold of the sergeant and says, get a detail, go do it. That's the typical chain of command.
Right.
As you well know.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
sergeants are the ones that run the Army.
You're right, exactly.
To a large extent.
Yes.
At least in its details.
They do the actual running.
Right, exactly. So how did you finally...
I got set up to Fort Meade and separated.
How did you finally get them to separate you, or did they just
The time came and they told me to do it.
They just decided on your own?
I'll tell you how long it had been. When I went to Fort Meade and they said, now, before we do all of this, are you interested in staying in and making a career of the military? And I thought, what's happening now? This is what I thought at that time, and it was probably true, although it changed later. Anybody that could get into the civilian world and do something left. And the ones that were afraid to go back to the civilians stayed. That was our general feeling. The man said, if you'll stay in 31 more days on active duty, you can go into the reserve as a captain. I said, let's get out of here now. I don't want in the reserve. They said, well, you're going to have to be in the reserve. And I said, no, I don't. I don't want in the reserve. They said, well, we'll put you in the inactive reserve. And I said, well, I don't even want to stay in that.
Hey, did you literally try to resign your commission?
They wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't let you, okay.
So anyway, I went into the reserve, and they almost called me for the Korean War. They kept sending me registered letters. You've got to go get a physical, do this interview, et cetera, et cetera. And had a call from the Marines. They said, we need a signal officer, and we have arranged, note that, we have arranged for you to be transferred in grade from the Signal Corps to the Marine Corps.
First lieutenant?
First lieutenant. And I said, no, thank you. And the captain that called me said, you didn't understand, did you? And I said, yes, I understood. He said, we're not going to demote you. And I said, look, if you wanted to give me a promotion to join the Marines, I said, no, thank you. Well, there was this long silence. He couldn't understand that at all. And then they sent me some registered letters. We need for you to go have a physical, whatnot. And I just trashed all of them. And finally, they sent me a discharge, an honorable discharge from the reserve. I had a reserve commission. They had 3 grades of commissions. Army of the United States, they were the appointees. Like doctors would go in, they'd make them a major, make them a captain. The fellow that couldn't see with at Virginia Tech got a AUS, called Army of the United States commission, which didn't carry much weight. The reserves didn't even want them. Then there were reserve commissions, which is what I had. And then there were the regular Army commissions. And so they sent me to Fort Meade. That's where I was separated. That's where they asked me the questions. I left.
So
I'd look back and wonder what it would have been like if I'd pursued a military career. I'd tell people I'd probably made major by now.
Yeah. Well, now so you got out then like what? April
or May
46,
46.
Like and they were after you for the Korean War, but you
Yes.
I
don't know why I didn't get called.
Maybe because you just ignored them.
Mostly, I think so. But I know they needed radar equipment and radar-trained people, people with microwave experience.
Well, did you actually ever do any military stuff after you got out? I mean, meetings or anything like that?
I often wonder if I shouldn't have. It was just that I think all of that waiting outside of Paris and then being shuffled around for those months in the United States because they said, well, you're essential and you don't have as many points as other people, you know.
That was kind of annoying.
And it was very annoying.
Very. Okay. What? Let's if you don't mind, let me ask the same question I've asked before. But
Ask them away.
Did you again? I guess I asked this, I think, along when we were about at the Rhine, at protecting the bridge. But subsequent to that, did any notable relationships jump up with any civilians, Germans or French or whatever, or prisoners of war? You mentioned the one guy.
I noticed, and
yes.
I meant to mention this.
Yes.
We didn't go through the main towns. We went through the countryside. And there'd be a little cottage, the barn beside it,
right.
Animals, cows,
Yes.
water and mud around. When we went along like this, when we crossed into Germany, it was just like somebody had painted a big white line.
Right.
Because the slop and the filth stopped.
That's an interesting observation you make here. Very interesting. Yeah. Germans are very organized.
Yes.
Whether you may think they get organized to do the wrong things, but
yeah,
they're organized.
I didn't need a map or anything else.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's interesting. There are riverbanks. If you take a train in Europe or in Germany, the riverbanks are organized. The forests are organized. Everything is.
And the French were
orderly.
sloppy.
It's an interesting observation. Well, let me see here.
Now, let me think
Peyton.
if I can skip anything that might be of interest.
We talked about Allied troops. You didn't have too much in the way of contact with them.
No.
This is important. How did you communicate? I'm sure you did to some extent, but describe the communication you had with home by mail, presumably, while you were there. And did you have any problems, family problems, while you were there, like your dad was sick or your mom was sick or something? None? Nothing like that?
None.
You did
Communicate with the gal. I wrote some letters. You've got to remember this, and I've always felt that people grow up with a basic personality and they pretty well stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not always. Not always. I was an engineer by choice. And engineers are typically what they call a melancholy group people. They don't make friends too well.
Mm-hmm.
They like to be by themselves. They are analytical. They are not recluses, but they are something of a mentality that doesn't go out and be gregarious and meet people and associate.
A bit solitary.
They are of a solitary nature, and I think it's because they have to be that way to just to graduate from school. You have to have a lot of perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
My electrical engineering class at Virginia Tech started out at about 275. 36 of us graduated.
Boy, that's an attrition.
And I was about in the middle of the class, but I was glad to be part of it. But it takes dogged determination, and this type of thing leads to a personality that is not very communicative. I don't think I made any friends in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
particularly, or people. It was just my engineering background nature.
Okay.
And when I came back, that continued for a while until one day I said, this is going to stop. This was about 30 years ago, and I have gone in a totally different direction. I've had a sales.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into sales. I like calling on people. I like solving problems. I like people. I make friends around. I have changed out of that mold to a certain extent. So you need to realize, though, that if we'd done this 40 years ago, you wouldn't have we'd have been done 2 hours ago.
Okay.
I wouldn't still be talking.
I get the drift. What?
But basically, this is why when you said about interaction with families and people and communications and who did you see and these sort of things, it just sort of didn't exist. I sort of stayed with myself.
Mm-hmm. When you did get out of the Army in 1946,
Mm-hmm.
Surely you must have had some idea what you were going to do with the rest of your life, or at least
Not
roughly.
really.
No? You had no idea?
I started to go back to school under the GI Bill.
To do what? Like a
Get
master's?
another degree or a master's degree. I wanted to get a degree in mechanical engineering.
Oh, I see. So you went back to Lynchburg?
But I didn't go back to school.
But you didn't go back to school?
No. I wasn't very, what's the right word? When people want to go do things.
Ambitious?
I wasn't very ambitious. That's a good word. I thought I'd just get an engineering job and sit somewhere and do that.
But that's not the way you went
That's the way I went for a while.
for a while.
Yeah.
Until you
I
got
worked for
into
the power company for a while.
Uh-huh.
And then there's an engineering department. And, typical, you may some engineers read this, but typically engineers are clods. And I can say that via
Oh, is that right?
That's just their nature. That's just their nature. Different degrees, but most of them are pretty dull people.
That's interesting. Okay.
Now, don't quote me.
Mhm.
You
You've
can't
been
quote me
quoted.
if you want.
You're on tape. You're on
Well,
tape.
it's like when I I do a seminar for consulting engineers.
Uh-huh.
In 1946, I would never have dreamed of standing up in front of some engineers and talk. I think my mother had instilled this. My mother, don't make waves. Other people know more than you do. Just be quiet and not say anything. But now I go do seminars for consulting engineers. And being registered as a professional engineer, I can usually start out and say everything I cover in this seminar has been a mistake or a problem or a catastrophe that has occurred at one time or another, either because of something I did or something the consultant did or something the contractor did or something the owner did. And I said, usually, we all contributed. So that's the way I start out, and then I cover air, basically air, and say, yes, what it is, yes, what it does, and so forth. And to contrast, 35 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of doing something like that. Now I love to do it.
Okay. We're just about done here.
Yeah.
A couple other little things.
Ask the question.
Were there any notable things that happened when you went home? This sounds like a stupid question, only because I'm stating it stupidly.
Question.
I mean, like everybody was so happy to see you home, or it was just sort of an anticlimax since you've been in the States for 9 months anyhow?
My dog was glad to see me.
Oh, your dog? Okay, well, that's encouraging. If your dog, you're in real trouble when your dog isn't glad to see you. No, I mean, were there any major...
I know I took a job. I wanted to get into flying. I love to fly. I soloed back in 1938.
Oh, is that right?
But my mother was adamantly opposed to it. I went and took a job with Page Airways. They needed an electronics man in Rochester, New York. I said, well, this will give me a chance to get away from home, get into electronics, use some of my engineering. Well, I got up there, all they wanted me to do was install radios, and that was a dead-end street. So, about 30 days of that, and I said, this is not it. And I was glad I did. I didn't see any... I don't like to give up easily. But when you see you're heading down the wrong street or you got your ladder against the wrong wall, then you ought to step back and take a look at it.
Did you have any brothers or sisters or any?
I have a sister.
But I mean, okay, so you didn't have anybody serve in the military then?
No.
Your sister,
She was 4 years older. Her husband was in the military at Pearl Harbor when they were.
Oh, is that right?
We fought in December, yeah.
But you were the only immediate family
That's
member
right.
who, okay. Did you have any strong feelings about people who, for one reason or another, did not serve during the war by reason of, physical disability or job, occupational deferments?
Not really. We didn't really. We referred to 4Fs, and things like that, but we really didn't put them down, because there were very, very few people that voluntarily tried to stay out. If they were not in the military, there was a good reason.
Okay.
And we sort of recognized that.
Would that, just as a matter of curiosity, would that have been a possibility for you?
No.
No. I mean...
I never even considered it.
I mean, okay. Because occupational deferment, I should think when you're in such a technical area that you might have been able to
But they needed me.
But they needed you in the uniform.
You see, I studied electrical engineering, I studied electronics, and guess what? I ended up working on radar sensing.
Do you have any other general comments about the war? What how the war affected you? How it changed the country? Just general observations on the whole war experience.
Well, we were all together. We're not like we are now, scattered in this direction, that direction. Everybody looking after each person is looking after his own interests now.
Yes.
And you see it in all of the different groups. If you look at them, they are for this cause and that cause. Basically, they're looking after their own interests. At that time, we didn't have that. I couldn't get tires for my car. No tires. Couldn't get gasoline. I drove in Florida with that Buick with an open place on the side. You could look at the cords for a long time because I couldn't get tires. I knew I was going to have to do something. But we put up with those things because we knew they were necessary. Now, some things that we thought were contrived necessities to make us aware of the war effort we didn't like.
For example?
I think that gasoline was one of them. They kept talking about we can't have enough gasoline, we need it in Europe, and they shortchanged Patton to stop him. They quit. He was going too fast, going to get ahead of the Russians, so they curtailed his gasoline supply, saying we couldn't get it.
That was deliberate.
That was deliberate. Oh yes, it was. I've heard it. They wanted the Russians to get into Berlin first.
Right.
That was deliberate. I think there were ample supplies here, but they curtailed them to make people aware of what was going on. And it may have served its purpose. A lot of the rationing they had wasn't necessary, in my mind. Now, that sort of thing we'd resent. We knew some of it was necessary. But I have no general comments except that the world we're living in now, the United States, is a totally different place. For example, we were all Americans. Now we're trying to separate them by saying, well, he's an English American, he's Afro-American, he's Chinese American. I think that's the most racist remark anybody can make, is to do that. Somebody asked me if I was an English American, and I resented that. We're trying to pull a country apart instead of putting it together. I told a fellow that asked me that, I said, I'm American. Don't try to separate me from the rest of America. And I don't like it when people are called that way. I have no problems with the black people, but I don't want to call them Afro-Americans. I don't want to call a German American. You see, I just think that's wrong. We're getting up.
So you think we had more of a sense of community in that time than there is today?
Yes.
That's probably.
We had a car that
not really even.
My car had a ignition switch that you had to have a key to unlock it, and then you could operate the ignition switch. We didn't even know where the key was. We never locked the car. We never locked the front door.
Yes. Yeah, well, I remember that even from my childhood in the early 50s.
There were people that were violent.
We didn't like.
And there were people that were murderers, and there were and people that were needy, we helped. If people could get a job, they got a job.
Well, thank you so much, Peyton. I appreciate your time and
Is this what
energy.
you wanted?
It's exactly what we wanted. Just for the tape here, I want to say it's 11:17 a.m. and we're going to terminate here. Thank you again so much on behalf of the Center for the Study of War and Society at the University of Tennessee.